Well, hello. As Anna said, I'm Greg. I do stuff called, I call folk blues and Americana. And there'll be a little bit of me, and then there'll be an awful lot of you. So I'm very excited about being involved in the 40th anniversary of Highgate Poets. It made me look at what happened 40 years ago this year. And I always associate it with the Sex Pistols and the Clash, but there were other interesting things as well. Like it was the year that Jimmy Carter came into office in the United States as president, and one of his first acts was to pardon the draft resistors in the United States, which I think is a good thing. And the second thing that I thought was really exciting about 1977 was that on April the 1st that year, Hay on Wye declared its independence from the United Kingdom. And just think where that's got us. So, the first thing I remember, I was lying in my bed. Couldn't have been no more than 1 or 2. Then there was a radio coming from the room next door, and my mama laughed the way some ladies do. When it's late in the evening and the music's coming through, the next thing I remember, I'm running down the road, feeling alright. I'm with my boys, I'm with my troops. And further down the avenue, some guys were shooting pool, and I heard the sound of a cappella groups playing late in the evening to all the girls out on the stoops. Then I learned to play some lead guitar. I was underage in a funky bar. Went outside and rolled myself a J. And when I came into the room, everybody seemed to groove, and I turned my amp up loud, I began to play. It was late in the evening and I blew that room away. I remember when you came into my life, I said I'll get that girl no matter what I do. I might have been in love before, once or twice I've been on the floor, but I never loved no one the way that I love you. When it's late in the evening and the music's coming through, a song by Johnny Cash, who I think of as a great poet. I love this one anyway. It's one of his last completed songs. He'd written it quite quite early in his career, and then couldn't work out what might be the last verse. So I think that's quite an interesting. Perhaps people have had that experience, not being able to finish something, and I think this is a really good. It works out a really good end to what's an interesting story. It's called Mean-Eyed Cat. It's not about a cat at all. It's about a somewhat dysfunctional relationship. I gave my woman half my money at the general store. I said, buy a little groceries, don't spend no more. But she paid $10 for a 10-cent hat and bought some store-bought cat food for that mean-eyed cat. When I woke up this morning and I turned my head, there wasn't a cotton-picking thing on her side of the bed, but I found a little old note where her head belonged. It said, so long, honey babe, I'm long gone. I heard those train whistles blowing and them big wheels turning. I was scared as I could be. I put on my overalls and I headed into town, gonna bring her back with me. I asked the man down at the station if he'd seen her there. I told him all about her pretty eyes, long blonde hair. He spat out his tobacco, said, I'll be darn blamed. I believe I seen her leaving on that eastbound train. I bought a round-trip ticket for that eastbound train. I was broke as I could be, and when I come home, gotta buy another ticket, gonna bring her back with me. Took me off that train somewhere in Arkansas, and I plucked up the guts to call my mother-in-law. She said, I'll tell you where she is if you'll just act right. She's working 4 to 12 at Trucker's World tonight. Well, when I walked in, she saw me and she took off her apron and she grabbed her going home hat. Bought a ticket with her tips. Now we're curled up on the sofa, me and her and that mean-eyed cat. Mean-eyed cat. My favourite songwriters is Richard Thompson. I always think about how people talk about a misspent youth, but they very rarely talk about a misspent middle age or whatever. But this is a song about somebody who seems to have misspent just about everything. And he's trying to make it right with his latest Flame, and it's a song called Saving the Best Stuff for You. I've seen trouble in every direction, My old head is peppered with grey. I could never resist life's temptation. It just seemed to step in my way. I've had wives and I've treated them badly. Maybe a lover or two. All the time, though I didn't know it, I was saving the good stuff for you. Saving the good stuff for you, darling. Saving the good stuff for you. There was some part of me knew, darling, I was saving the good stuff for you. I even thought on occasion it was love that was making me blue. Some kind of love, I call it love, maybe fatal attraction will do. But now I've cut loose from the old ways. You're all that I'm clinging to. All the time, though I didn't know it, I was saving the good stuff for you. Saving the good stuff for you, darling. Saving the good stuff for you. All the time, though I didn't know it, I was saving the good stuff for you. I'm so glad that you didn't know me when I was out of control. I was hollow right there in the middle. Some people got caught in the hole. But now I'm older and wiser. I know for me you will do. All the time, though I didn't know it, I was saving the good stuff for you. Saving the good stuff for you, darling. Saving the good stuff for you. All the time, though I didn't know it, I was saving the good stuff for you. There was some part of me knew, darling, I was saving the good stuff for you.
This is Highgate Poets' 40th birthday, and I'm going to start by bringing up Miriam Halahmy, and she's going to talk a little bit about the history of Highgate Poets. We've got lots of new members here, and I think she's going to read from some of the poets who were in at the beginning.
Yes, that's. I don't need that. They can hear. Can you hear me at the back?
Yes.
That's lovely. I'm not keen on microphones. Well, I think first of all, well done, Anna, and all of you for organising a 40th anniversary gathering and having some music and poetry and everything. Because I've been in the Highgate Poets, I probably joined about 10 years after they formed. So they formed in 1977, and in the 80s I'm this sort of very green young mum of two, and I trot along and they're all meeting in someone's house. And I always think of them of the old ones, you see, because I was young then, now I'm one of the old ones. Well, I'm the oldest probably. And I've been in it ever since. And quite recently, because I wasn't really engaging so much with the group, I thought, should I stay or should I not? And I was made honorary life member. I have to say that was very, very dear to my heart, because it was very difficult for me to think about walking away. particularly as I knew everyone who set up this wonderful organisation. So that's been really lovely for me. So the Highgate Poets is of course a unique organisation in the world. We are the only Highgate Poets in the world. Highgate, of course, has a huge and massive literary history. And we are at its heart, really, because we are the Highgate Poets. And it's a very important thing, actually, that I always like to sort of say when we get together, just to remind ourselves of where we sit on the sort of spectrum of literary history. And I wanted to talk about one of the founder members today, Roderick Benziger, who actually died 10 years ago at the age of 69. And Roderick was very much a larger-than-life character, and he was very typical of the founders in this organisation. If you went along to a Highgate Poet evening, somebody would know any language that you were trying to stick into your poem. They knew all the languages, they were classically educated, they'd been everywhere in the world, they could talk about anything, theatre, books, politics. It was like a mini university for me, really. So I'm sitting there a bit wide-eyed, you know, with my two little ones upstairs when they came to my house. And they cooked for each other. They were a very close group. They weren't a very big group at first. And that was really, really lovely. And Roderick, he died in 2007, and he never really joined the technological age. So Roderick would write to you with his fountain pen and put his letter in an envelope with a stamp. And it was lovely. We treasured his letters, actually. I've still got some of them. So it gives you an idea. And he was Swiss-German, and he was a political activist, and he was very responsible for founding and keeping going the annual anthology, because he was in publishing as well. And when he died, his wife put together this little collection called No Primrose Way. And he often talked about his father, so I thought I'd read one of Roderick's poems tonight. And it's called Winter Journey. Cumbersome on skis, all visions and plans, my father makes the lead, the king's pawn, opening a glittering dream of powder snow, where fence posts are black, snow-thatched logs, or undulations that can dislocate a knee. I've reached the edge. Criss-cross down, abruptness, snow slides shiver my world. Rocks are blatant matters of fact. I half cancel my father's warnings, bank on eyesight, skis and sticks. He comes alongside, proud of himself and me, hands on his rookish shoulder. I castle, usurp my king. Then ski ahead, extending his backwardness, one ski in the grave. I wait. He reappears as night to draw the end game. We ski in silence. It's very much his voice in there, blatant matters of fact. It's very much how Roderick spoke. So Highgate Poets has gone through many different changes, and I know now that the anthology, which I am very pleased still keeps going, is biannual, and probably sensible, actually. Because it is an awful lot to keep going. But when they first started the anthology, they called it Kites. They were thinking of kites flying over Primrose Hill, you know. But now, a few years ago, we started having individual names for the anthology. And of course, modernising it a bit, you know. So now it's got a spine and probably a photograph on the front. But this was a pen drawing by Jill Bamber, who's a very long-standing member. She joined on the same day as me, actually. And she was an artist as well as a poet. And often did the covers. But I thought I would read a second poem by the founder member, Fleur Bowers.
Who died this year, yes?
Yes, in 90-something. She was in her 70s when I met her, I think.
Did she die this year?
Was it this year or
last year?
Early this year. Early this year, yeah. Well, this is a lovely poem. Last Love Letter. The waterfall has dwindled, a mere trickle sounds in this disenchanted morning. I embrace my sadness, kindled by loneliness, your presence a traced shadow, an essence that harbours no return. Poppies in the field are bowed, their reds returning to brown. River under our frail bridge mirrors my uncertainties. At my feet, leaves scuffle. Summer is nearly gone. Its dryness wraps me in its heat. I am sure my note for us to meet at river's edge has gone astray. I float one last letter flower on slow currents of the river. Like our love, it flickers, uncertain of its path through rocky terrain, water under the bridge gone down to the blue. And I'll just finish with one of my own, and just to say that together with Anne Ballard, who joined the Poets quite a few years ago and sort of ran it for a bit, rather like Anna does now. We rely on people to keep us going. Anne and I decided that we wanted to set up our own poetry press, and we called it RQ Poetry Pamphlets. And Vicky's got a collection with us as well. I think you're number 3,
Yeah.
and Anne is number 2. So I'll just read one from this, which was published in one of those magazines, South Bank, I think. It's a London poet. Travelling east. Down the hill from Whitestone Pond, spring has sealed green the horizon. St Paul's tucked along the river, hidden now for months. Hampstead Heath a magnificence of tree. She lounges in the passenger seat, flicking channels. Van Morrison on Kiss FM takes her far beyond this winding road, my long-legged, brown-eyed girl. Her smooth skin tattooed deep by needles bringing goodness, rabies, typhoid, tetanus. Wrapped up and bound for Southeast Asia, she's erected an internal shield. 50-litre backpack, sand leans without a care by the door. Next week she will sleep beneath her impregnated mosquito net, snakes hissing in the night. Avoid water, the saliva of monkeys. She will travel a geography I have only read about, my wisdom outdated, route maps no further east than Jerusalem. In a language without reference, she will ride north, trails bubbling adventure, and just a text intermittent between paddy fields to link us. Will I hold my breath for weeks? Which I did. When she went to get all these injections, she got this rabies injection, and then the nurse said, "But if a monkey licks you," and I go, "I'm licked by a monkey." And then he didn't let her go then. Anyway, that's me done.
I remember when you wrote that poem.
Yeah, and everyone laughed at me. That's not why.
Yes, so Miriam was a stalwart of Highgate Poets and still is, really. And that's why we made her an honorary, what was we call it? An honorary life member.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hope she will always be able to come and join our big events like this. So, our next poet is Christina Juan. And Christina, now, I have to check that I've got this right. You're a professor of English literature in your native Philippines.
Comparative literature.
Comparative literature. Well,
Not English.
fine-tuning that. So, in other words, she's awfully clever.
Oh.
And is now based at SOAS, the School of Oriental and African Studies. She's been a Highgate Poet member for as long as I can remember. How long is that now? About 5-6 years?
We moved here 2013, maybe 3.
Yeah, yeah, about 5 years. So without any further preamble, Christina, take your seat. You can use this mic if you want to, just press that up, but don't put your mouth too close or it blows your ears out.
No. You have to switch on.
Sorry.
Wait, no, you've got to switch it on now.
So I'll just read 2 very short poems and a kind of long one, but not very long, really. So this one's called Concert Pitch. The A above middle C is vibrating at exactly 440 times per second. The soundboard is flat and broad, and the felted wool wrapped around the 24th hammer from the left is round and springs back with the slightest touch. The key capstan is adjusted. The whip and flange does not require lubrication. The damper spoon is not corroded. And the note that you breathe on me comes down my metal string like a sticky song. This one's, when we go back, this is, I wrote this when we went back to Delaware, a small rural church we were visiting. This is called Dharma Bum. It took him a while to fish a coin from his pocket, his bloated hand, breath pinched in between soiled jeans, tight around the waist, shoes speckled with puke splatter. The sharp metallic ring of a quarter landing in between the matzoed scraps, brittle dry, as it jangled around the silver plate, passed from hand to hand in a wooden church, velvet red, unadorned cross emptied of flesh, heavy hymns. He had to give. He had to give. There was nothing to receive. When they passed the wine, he picked a plastic mini cup, drank it with eyes closed, and left. And then I end with the last one. This is called Matchboxes. It's kind of a satirical poem. Matchboxes. They laid her to rest in a matchbox. All that was left of her were ashes. They found her, gathered up in a little heap, in the corner where she used to sit. Old, very old, leathery and grey. According to accounts, she simply and quietly burst into flames, all by herself. A process they call spontaneous combustion. Until now, no one knows why it happens, or why it has a special fondness for rotten driftwood, damp soil, or grandmothers. It could have been her stare. She kept at it too long. Or it could have been her raspy breath, rattling through her hollow frame, back and forth, too much friction. Or maybe, who knows, it could have been an accident, some random spark that landed on her crumpled skin, her paper nails, her wafer hair. Old people are a mess. Now they're fire hazards as well.
And now we're going to have one. I can't see him. Where's he hiding, Julian?
Okay.
You're here. Now we're going to have one of our newer members. Very new, actually. Joined last summer, I think, just before. Julian is a journalist who's worked for ITN and the BBC, and he's had a love of poetry. Does that say drummed out?
Drummed out, yeah.
For him at university, and you'll have to explain what this means, and has rediscovered it, finally, with a vengeance.
Which is what I'm writing now. So I'm going to start with an acrostic poem, and I don't know if this means anything to anybody. The painting that was sold for an obscene amount of money. So I wrote a poem about it. It's called The Last Leonardo. I'll hold it up so you can reference it.
Shall I hold it?
Yeah, that would be good.
And then you can
It kind of refers
concentrate.
to the picture. I've gazed in a blur upon turbulent eras, observed fevered machinations and the execution of kings. Witness to great genius, I am a silent bystander to regicide, genocide, the terrors of war. One hand I raise in benediction, the other bears the weight of the world within a perfect diaphanous sphere, drained clean of vibrancy and air, its contents are clear. My painted face has an earthly beauty, expressionless, misted in a chiaroscuro stare. I say nothing. My thoughts are veiled, Paid to survey, I give nothing away. The God with his fingers crossed, a saviour of the world who's for sale. And getting a little bit political, I'd like to dedicate my next poem to Donald Trump, if he's here. He's around.
He's hiding at the back.
Somewhere around there. Donald, this is for
He'll
you.
come for the wedding.
Yeah, yeah.
This is called Bindweed. Rising up, a spear from the dark earth, seeking out the flesh of a soft ripe beanstalk, to mount and twist around, bodies bound and bagged without a single sound. Fingers creep up, spin towards the chin, the head starts quivering, the chest tightening. The bindweed grips, squeezes like a snake, slithers further up, the bean's fire escape. All hell breaks loose, someone cuts the power, red petals faint, alarming the flowers. The weed hits the roof, carries on higher, the trumpets blaring out white propaganda. The monster grows, too big for its boots, oblivious to the trowel, tugging at the roots. I wasn't very good at school. I was okay at English, but I couldn't do maths. And I was quite sad to learn my maths teacher died quite recently. He was called Mr. Gray. And this is a poem I dedicate, after Donald Trump, to my maths teacher. How you subjected me to countless humiliations, convergent to your values, contrapositive to your equations. Your terms ran rings around me. Was I acutely obtuse, or differential to the right angles, brain tangled, refusing to compute? Oh, golden mean, me at 6s and 7s, you with your sharpened 5s, each an inverted progression. But you miscalculated the sum of 40 a day. All those days times 40. It all adds up, Mr. Gray. Two more. This one is called Puddle. I want to reflect for a minute, in a contained and collected way, on why I look up to the sky, although it looks down on me. On the cloudy, dim recordings, the wobbly faces of the moon, captured only momentarily on a black and white silent film, of grainy flickering pictures, of higher forms of life, like trees, drowned in a muddy mixture of doubled, distorted images, including you, who I replicate too. But I am one step ahead on days when you wear flimsy shoes and should have worn waterproofs instead. Yes, I'm cold, shallow, no fair weather friend, but remember, when they lower you to your grave, I will be the one standing by you in the chill of a cemetery in the rain. And finally, a little mystery for you. This is called Balloon. Let me tell you a tale of nothing, surrounded by nothing but skin, and full of almost nothing but a breath of weightless air. So if all I am is nothing, I should have nothing to fear. But something made of nothing is what I fear most of all, and that is your silence, and the something you could drop within. Okay.
Very much, Julian. Really lovely prose. So interesting. Our next poet, you could say I headhunted her. I went to the Poetry Society Poetry at 3 one Thursday, and this poet stood up and did these quite amazingly interesting political poems and delivered them really well, and I thought, we've got to have her in Highgate Poets. And luckily for us, she agreed to join. So can I welcome Jenny Mitchell?
Thank you very much. I'm going to just do two.
Ooh, can I just stop you a minute, Jenny, because I've completely missed your bio saying all that stuff. Jenny's poems have been published in several anthologies as well as dramatised on BBC Two. Her play English Rose was broadcast on Radio 4 and 2 others have been placed in writing competitions. She's currently writing a proposed quintet of novels and her first poetry pamphlet. So sorry, I didn't mean to miss that.
Thank you very much. The first one I wrote because this was a few years ago, I started to see more and more incident boards about gang-related violence, and this poem came out of that. It's called Incident. Every time the bell rings, I'm going to start again. Incident. I've come to see the remains of my son before they wash the pavement. There are flowers sticking out of a fence where strangers have paid tribute. Dark, silver leaves and a golden mass of light still in their plastic. As I approach, the concrete melted into blood. A yellow-blue board says, "Fatal, gang, in confidence." I step away from the cracks and see the guts have said too much. Each drop becomes a part of him I knew. The sheet where he was born, a nosebleed on a white shirt, a grazed knee and the outline of a boy with 3 knife wounds. Why is it my child locked in an airless box and not that man frowning in his car? Or her, a girl I do not know and did not push into this world? Torn blood has fallen on the ground. I am the blood torn from his heart. These people want to help me stand. But where he fell, this pavement frames me gentle enough. I've been doing a lot of research into Britain's history in terms of enslavement, especially in Jamaica. So I spent quite a few years just doing that reading for myself to sort of ground myself in this country, really. And the quintet is based on sort of the legacies of that history. But the poems seem to be looking at that history as well. And one of the things about Jamaica is that it's divided into 3 historical counties, which are Cornwall, Middlesex and Surrey, which kind of tells you so much about the relationship with this country. So I've written 3 poems based in each county, and this is one in Middlesex. Hear me when I say, I saw them through the window on the night the master laid to rest. I came out of the trees, the only light from the fireflies and stars, and looked in the big house. The mistress sitting in a parlour chair, the fire blazing on her face as if she couldn't feel the heat left over from the day. Her hair was greying on her head. The black dress settled on her body like the dark. She favoured all at once the portrait of the English Queen above the mantelpiece. The difference was, the mistress looked so scared. Her older son pushed back his chair and took big steps towards her. Her eyes were wide and staring out. It shocked me, I must say. She always looked cocksure and grand when she walked through the estate, her arm locked tight in the late master's arm. Every time she saw a slave at work, she smiled. We learned to smile back, or the master would want to know why. This night I am talking when she looked scared. Her son stood close to her knees and used a fist to beat the air in front of her face. The glass between us stopped his voice from reaching me, except screamed words, "I want the money, all of it. I am the master now." She shook her head and started to cry. It gave me a pain just here in my chest to see the tears I held inside to prove I was a man. Her son raised his arm again. I thought he meant to box her, so I stepped back towards the trees. I didn't want to see him do his worst to her. What might he do to me? My back had opened up enough beneath his father's whip. I'd tasted my own blood too many times to count. I heard the mistress scream as I turned round and begged the trees to form a path all lit with fireflies and stars. I ran through the estate and climbed the boundary wall. It hurt to drop to the other side, but let me tell you this, God blast the pain. I ran, and I ran, and I ran. Now hear me when I say, the law may tell you otherwise, but me, I know I've run enough to call myself a free man in Middlesex, Jamaica. Thank you.
Follow that. Who have we got next? Jack. Jack is one of our newest and youngest members, and he's recently come down to London from Oxford University. He was a student of cell and systems biology.
It was cooler than it sounds. I got the lame degree name.
And he's had poetry published in many university and student publications in Oxford, and also he became creative writing editor for Are You Lost Yet?, a literary magazine that promotes the creative works of 16 to 25-year-olds. So, Jack Cooper.
Want the mic?
Can you hear me at the back? Yeah, I get weird with mics. So I thought I would start with the poem that I brought to the first Highgate Poets meeting that I attended, which was only this September, but with edits, because they were very helpful suggestions. So if you were at that meeting, you would have known it as Coiled, but it's now Autumn Reunion. Warm breath on collarbone hollows, a heavy rhythm from drowsy lips. My drooping lover unspools contentedly, spread on limestone ribs and talcum stomach. Teased by gentle pressures and musky scents, I meander through tracks well beaten. 2 fingers forked, a divination, dowsing ley lines that map your form. A geomancer, reading half-lit skin. Oh, so I got 3.
I think we're not going to clap until the end, actually.
This was written 3 months after I started dating my boyfriend, and we're now nearly 3 years in, so good omens, hopefully. But, and this is called 1.618, which is the golden number, which is a ratio that appears quite often in nature and it's associated with beautiful form. When I was young and spiteful, I held my brother's toy through the window and let it fall the shortest path, headed for a 6-year-old's revenge. I don't know the laws that govern descent. Regardless, they drive soft cotton flesh to meet scraps of lawn with sharp precision. And there are laws that govern growth. When plants grow towards the light, they too follow the path which leads them soonest to their goal. I see this on my sill, a rose with golden sunlight on its green, and golden numbers in the spiral of its red. Beauty and efficiency can be kin, but I do not see efficiency in the down of your ear or the curve of your calf. You could be governed by nothing so harsh, even though I am falling for you by the shortest path. This is a kind of Halloween poem. I guess we can't dim lights, but imagine dramatic scenery. Although everything in this poem is technically real because it's based off the... so my grandmother, she's very close to her neighbour, and her neighbour has quite advanced progressive dementia, and some individuals suffer quite strong hallucinations as part of that. So one afternoon I visited my grandmother, and I kind of held witness to this woman's torment because these hallucinations, she believes them and she lives them every moment. So this is based on some of her experiences. Each night they hide in caterpillars, breaking from cocoons to swarm and writhe and birth drowned shadows in my room. Each night they crawl through cracks, the floor thick with bristled bodies that seep and swell and crest the dead. Each night flies baptize themselves in the waters of their eyes, immersed in pools that stare and glare and glower 4 foot from mine. Each night the buzz of blowflies crashes into static. Black rivers pour on my sheets from mother, father, son, a hollowed family. Each night, that man with limbs like praying manatees, frozen on the cusp of sex and violence, lust in his lap and in his tongue. Each night, that woman crouches, child latched like leeches, feeding, gorging, stealing salt water from bloated breasts. Each night, I push fingers in their skin, crack salt crust and burst them into riptide, to hiss and swirl and billow, breaking higher up the walls each night.
From the youngest to possibly the oldest poet in the group. I don't know how many years you've been a member, Chris, but quite a long time, since the early times. So,
2001. 2001.
Was it?
Yeah.
So that's 15, 16 years. Yes. Do you want to come up?
Yeah, sure,
Chris read classical moderation at Oxford. I've never heard of that, don't know what it is. Something to do with the classics, I think.
yeah. Freaking Latin literature.
And he's the author of Homer and the European Epic, which was published in 2011. So, can you give him a big hand?
Please, a song, yeah.
Are you going to sing a song?
I can sing something.
Fantastic.
Okay, the first one, this poem is about the city of London, where somebody claimed that in fact 300 languages are spoken in this city. I don't know whether this is drawn up, but it's a big number anyway, you know, by the standards of well, any standards. I've given this poem a Welsh title because Welsh means literally the language of the foreigners, and we're actually all foreigners. So it's called Binoriau man y bore, which I hope is good Welsh for in the small hours of the morning.
I should have mentioned that Chris speaks numerous languages.
Bits of them.
Numerous. I've heard him speak.
Anyway, in the small hours of the morning, you can hear the heartbeats of the city, the constant hum of traffic on the North Circular, the fruit and vegetables arriving at 9 Elms, the insistent expresses converging on Paddington, King's Cross, Victoria, the lorry's ponderous growl. As millions sleep, the night bus threads its way down near deserted streets. Key service personnel are hard at work, suppliers of bread, blood, energy. The city winks and rubs its eyes. Day beckons, colours recompose. The birds' carols announce the morning. The underground begins to rumble. Milk carts glide sweetly. Letters are distributed. Shopkeepers prepare for the first customer. Lift your veil, fix me with your gaze. Uncross your legs and enfold me in a sensuous clinch. I disregard the lines on your face, your scrawny hair, your stained and tattered clothes, the noxious fumes you breathe, you still retain that age-old nobility, fire-consumed phoenix, dowager queen of sorrows, ravaged heroine of the Blitz, mother of our dreams and fantasies, mistress of 7 seas, matriarch of all peoples, Babel, Babylon, bloody but unbowed belle of Bow, fighting on amid the cacophonous crescendo, the hurtling pursuit of hell they call the 21st century. Let us, all your citizens, come together once again in the true spirit of friendship under your maternal wing, as we seek repose and love in the small hours of the morning. This next one is about a cafe restaurant near where I used to work, and it was an Italian establishment, and so it's entitled Allora.
Got a bit of Italian as well.
It's got some Italian,
Chris.
yeah, I hope the Italian's accurate. I don't know what it is, but anyway. The point is that the guy who actually ran it, fronted it, was a man called Guido, who was always good-humoured, and always began with Allora. So that's why it's called Allora. For many years, Guido ran a cafe situated behind the back of the Shaftesbury Theatre. As you entered, you would see his genial face beaming from behind the counter. Hello, boss. Hello, young man. And when you went to pay, he would invariably begin his deliberations with Allora, before naming the sum outstanding. Several customers noticed this and would forestall him with, Allora, how much is that, then, Guido? Or invariably he smiled good-humouredly and said what there was to pay. So it went on, month after month, year after year, until we learned with much sadness that he had sold up, retiring back to Italy. It was like the end of an era. No more the genial host, the smile of welcome, bon ami. Buona fortuna, Guido. Enjoy your retirement. When you finally arrive at that renowned celestial albergo, St. Peter will no doubt exclaim, Molto fantastico! Guido è arrivato! Allora, entra signore! Benvenuto in paradiso! Che vorrebbe mangiare? Over the years I've noticed I've written a lot of poems about animals, mostly cats, but this one is called Letter from a Horse. It's quite self-explanatory, really. Letter from a horse. No, it's not our job. Our work is pulling ploughs, pulling carts, beer supplies a speciality, the occasional coach, support for military personnel, reproducing ourselves, clearing obstacles, outracing our fellows. This gives some of you the chance to make money, uniting aristocrats and Irish peasants alike in appreciation of our noble qualities, etc., etc. Patching up people who have injured themselves falling off walls is definitely not part of the job description. We are not physically able to do it, and furthermore, we don't have the necessary expertise. Can we stick this fellow together? Say nay, say nay. Give us credit for some sense. Come to think of it, all those men probably can't do the job either. Right, to finish with this song, somebody mentioned Donald Trump. He comes into this. This song is called The Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon. Try and find the right key first. Yeah, something like that. It begins with a chorus. The chorus goes like this. You can join in if you like. Drinking, oh Lord, drinking, oh Lord, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Drinking, oh Lord, drinking, oh Lord, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Well, the Arctic's getting hot and we're losing what we've got. Drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. This will soon increase the cares of more than polar bears. We're drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Chorus. Drinking, oh Lord, drinking, oh Lord, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Drinking, oh Lord, drinking, oh Lord, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Our response is far too slow, there's just a few years left to go. Drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. What we should be striving for is a rise of 1 degree, not more. We're drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Drinking, oh Lord, drinking, oh Lord, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Drinking, oh Lord, drinking, oh Lord, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. We need to get real wise, agitate and organise, and stop drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Governments of every state are all leaving it too late. They're drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Drinking, oh Lord, drinking, oh Lord, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Drinking, oh Lord, drinking, oh Lord, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. You can say that Donald Trump is a bully and a chump. Drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. He's left us in the lurch, cutting climate change research. He's drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Drinking, oh Lord, drinking, oh Lord, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Drinking, oh Lord, drinking, oh Lord, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Mrs. Merkel, Mrs. May don't seem to have a lot to say. Drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. It's of course a great concern if they let our planet burn by drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Drinking, oh Lord, drinking, oh Lord, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Drinking, oh Lord, drinking, oh Lord, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Maybe it's up to the Chinese, for the West is on its knees, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. We need to change the rules, say goodbye to fossil fuels, and stop drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Final chorus. Drinking, oh Lord, drinking, oh Lord, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon. Drinking, oh Lord, drinking, oh Lord, drinking at the Last Chance Saloon.
Steady. Okay, we're going to start the second half with 2 songs from Gregg, and then I'm going to read you my story poem.
I heard a story about how Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan had shared a taxi at one point. It's not very long ago, maybe 10 years ago or something, and in what neither of them were very conversational, but eventually Bob Dylan said to Leonard Cohen, "I really like that song of yours, Hallelujah. How long did it take you to write that?" And in the story, Leonard Cohen says, "I couldn't tell him the truth. It was ridiculous. I couldn't tell him 10 years. I said, well, with all the rewrites, maybe 2 years." And there was a silence. And then he said, then after a while, he thought he better say something. So he said, "I always loved Blowing in the Wind. How long did it take you to write that?" And Bob Dylan said, "Oh, about 3 hours." And I think it's all about the rewrites, isn't it? I discovered a wonderful old song by a guy called Frank Stokes. Frank Stokes wrote a song about the then mayor of Memphis. This is back in the 1920s. But this guy went on being mayor even right up into around about the 1950s. But at the time, Frank Stokes, this old blues player, wrote what was basically a protest song about the fact that this guy wanted to, he was very keen on prohibition, he didn't like people having fun, he wanted to close down all the honky-tonks, all the poetry readings, no sense of artistic creativity at all, and it was a kind of protest song about that. Anyway, as it happens, this guy was called Mr. Crump. So he wrote a song called Mr. Crump, didn't like it. And I just thought it was begging to be, if you like, used for our present troubles. So this is a song which is largely of my own creation. Not entirely, I insist on you knowing, and the tune is definitely by Frank Stokes.
So he put out pictures of the one before. Mr. Trump don't like it, ain't gonna have it here. Now the climate scientists began to cry. Oh, the climate scientists began to cry. Oh, the climate scientists began to cry, 'cause there ain't no way getting through to the sky. Mr. Trump don't like it, gonna have it here. Mr. Trump don't like it, ain't gonna have it here. Mr. Trump don't like it, ain't gonna have it here. Mr. Trump don't like it, ain't gonna have it here. We ain't got no time. Keep spreading that fear. Mr. Trump don't like it, ain't gonna have it here. It's a big disgrace, Obama's been tapping my phone. It's a big disgrace, Obama's been tapping my phone. It's a big disgrace, he keeps on tapping my phone. He taps and taps, he won't leave it alone. Mr. Trump don't like it, ain't gonna have it here. They trashed my image in a show called Julius Caesar. They trashed my image in a show called Caesar. Who's this Shakespeare? Stop his visa. Mr. Trump don't like it, ain't gonna have it here. Mr. Trump don't like it, ain't gonna have it here. Mr. Trump don't like it, ain't gonna have it here. Mr. Trump don't like it, ain't gonna have it here. We ain't got no plan. Keep spreading that fear. Mr. Trump don't like it, ain't gonna have it here. Mr. Kim Jong-un, I'm gonna change his career. Mr. Kim Jong-un, gonna end his career. Mr. Trump gonna end his career. Time magazine will make me man of the year. Mr. Trump don't like it, ain't gonna have it here. Storm in Puerto Rico, everybody's in distress. There's a storm in Puerto Rico, everybody's in distress. There's a storm in Puerto Rico, everybody's in distress. Call the town clock to clear
poor man stand such times and live? Well, the doctor looks at you with his face all bright, and he says in a little while you'll be alright. All he gives is a humbug pill, dose of dope and a great big bill. Tell me, how can a poor man stand such times and live? Well, there once was a time when everything was cheap, but now prices, they just put a man to sleep. When we get our grocery bills, man, we feel like making our wills. Tell me, how can a poor man stand such times? These days preachers preach for gold and not for soul. That's one thing that keeps us in a hole. We can hardly catch our breath, preach in school and tax to death. Tell me, how can a poor man stand such times and live? I remember when dry goods was cheap as dirt. Only took 2 bits to buy a dandy shirt. Now it takes $3 or more. Maybe find a shirt some other guy wore. Tell me, how can a poor man stand such times and live? Tell me, how can a poor man stand such times and
Wow, it was fantastic. As always, Gregg. Okay, there's a couple of things I want to say before I read my poem. If my voice holds up, and I hope you'll bear with me when I do read my poem, because it's probably quite painful to listen to my voice. We produced a Highgate Poets anthology this year, and on the front of it is a picture by a local artist, and why is his name gone straight out of my head? Alan Lancaster. I should have invited him this evening, I forgot. And it's called Naming the Clouds, because Vicky, who's on in a bit, wrote a poem about the guy who named the clouds, Cumulus and all the other names there are for the clouds. And and it's a lovely poem. So that's why we named the anthology Naming the Clouds. And on the back table there's lots of back issues of our anthologies. So the one before, this one was the 28th anthology. The one before, The Space It Might Take, is also lovely. Some great poems in all of them, and before that it was Urban Harvest. And then I'm going to do a definite plug for my two books. Dolly Mix is a mixture of different poems that I've done in performance, and a memoir that I wrote and was published 2 years ago. And I'm just about to, having taught memoir writing for a few years, publish a book called Memoir Writing, How to Tell a Story from Your Life. So hopefully that will be available on Amazon for your Christmas present list, for your auntie or your mother or your father or your brother, whoever's into writing, for the Christmas, to be available hopefully on December the 1st. Anyway, I recently workshopped this poem in a Highgate Poets meeting. Ooh, we've got that hum again, Dave. I recently workshopped this poem. It was for Halloween, like Jack wrote one for Halloween. Has anybody here heard of the Parkland Walk?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, so this poem is set in the Parkland Walk, and many years ago there used to be railway stations, small railway stations in Crouch End and Muswell Hill and dotted about in the area. And then Dr. Beeching decided to close them all, and anyway, it says in the poem what happened, so, to the Parkland Walk. But it's called the Spriggan, and the Spriggan is, when it became the Parkland Walk, a statue of the Spriggan was commissioned from an artist, and she did a wonderful sculpture of the Spriggan coming out of one of the old railway tunnels. And he's a sort of fairy from Cornish legend who guards old ruins. Chris would know more about it than me, probably, no? Anyway, the Spriggan. And I've tried to bring into the poem as much local history as possible. Dusk is falling on the Parkland Walk. The last remnants of walkers quicken their step. They've heard the rumours, and the rumours are right. The goat man's eyelids open a tiny crack. The woman pushing her pram hurries past. A low growl starts deep in the throat of the black dog tied to her pram. The dog knows. Oh yes, the dog knows. He keeps his head low, stiff-legged as they scurry past along the path, down the steps and out onto the lane. The last train chuffed its way down this track in 1954. Nature took over and time stood still until in 1984 the Parkland Walk was born. Banks of weeds and brambles were cleared. Now nature was to be conserved but controlled. High up, where the walk crosses a wide bridge near Muswell Hill, the lights of London are flickering on in a sea of twinkles across to the Thames and beyond. It's a clear, cold, crispy night, and a full moon is rising. The goat man lifts his grey-green head, stretches out cold, stiff limbs, and looks to the rising moon. He cocks his head, listening. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? His croaking voice, well, that's easy. Rusty as old iron, speaks in a hoarse whisper to himself. Chuff, chuff, puff, puff, woohoo, woohoo. The sound of a steam engine on missing tracks, missing since all were lifted and sold for scrap in 1984. The train is heading back in time, back to a different time, a time when iron gods were king. In the dead of night, time is suspended, time is malleable, an echo of the past. The goat man raises his 8-foot metal bulk, green with verdigris and rust. He begins his nightly patrol along the shadowed walk, along the nature trails and ghostly paths of Alexandra Palace. If any human were to tread this dark and misty wooded way in the deepest night, would they encounter the same giant, cloven-hooved apparition? I think not. Mystic magic fades from view and hides easily from human sight. But Stephen King's Parkland Walk story speaks of people known to lose their way here, and some who lose their way forever. By day, the walk is green and soft and full of light and air, a haven now for many species of birds and butterflies. City-worn humans come to run and walk and breathe some cleaner air into their lungs. By night, foxes bark and breed. Slow worms, those snake-like lizards, curl in dark hollows to preserve any heat gathered from the day, and in the coldest part of winter, hibernate with the hedgehogs. The Spriggan marches on, past overgrown platforms at Crouch End and Muswell Hill. He melts back into the urban permaculture forest of trees and shrubs, as racing towards him on the absent tracks, he hears a whistle and hiss and rattle that warns him to stand aside. Out of the dark and ghostly gloom, a monster of iron and steel shimmers into view, woo-wooing a soft and spooky whistle, and lit by a shaft of moonlight, a whisper of grey steam floats up from the chimney, rising to float across the moon. As the train swishes past, look, look! Whose faces are gazing from carriage windows, whisking past? Can that be Karl Marx's towering form, seated in the driver's cabin, risen from his Highgate grave to join the proletariat at last? Behind him, see the storytellers, Chaucer, Pepys and Congreve, Browning, Trollope, Dickens, Austen and Mary Ann Cross, to give George Eliot a rightful name. And oh, the poets, Christina Rossetti and Coleridge, again from Highgate graves, seated next to William Blake from Bunhill Row, risen up with the other nonconformists, Bunyan and Defoe. Crowded too among these literary giants are misty murderers, some hanged who got their just desserts like serial killer Christie, others maybe not, like Ruth Ellis, the last to be hanged at Holloway. Death is a great leveller, is it not? And Jack, who is that shadowy figure behind them all, if not he? All are crowding at the windows to see the London of their pasts slipping by, the London they have lost. The lights flicker across our Spriggan man's impassive face as each populated carriage slides by until the final coach appears bolting towards him as a ghostly laugh echoes down the walkways. Seated on top of the final wagon, cross-legged, blazing trident held above his head, His bronze red skin glows, and mad eyes burn like hot coals. He laughs, a dangerous, fearless laugh, as the train mutters along the track, fading back into the haunted demon world. The green fairy man turns back upon the now silent walkway, and with a last glance behind, continues his hooven trot, returning to his sheltered brick arch beside the short tunnel. He is Spriggan, the keeper and the watcher, guardian of abandoned ruins. Some say a stealer of children, who leaves a Spriggan substitute behind. But I say, not this green man. This one has a benevolent eye. Silence and darkness lie upon the parkland walk again, and as a faint pink light starts to tinge the distant horizon, his eyelids droop and he freezes into his usual pose. Thank you. The Spriggan is somewhere around the Crouch End part of the Parkland Walk. But if you look it up, you can Google him and it'll tell you exactly. So, now we're going to have one of our newer poets, and that's Tony McIntyre. And he's told, well, I know he's an architect, and he lives in near Highgate anyway. And he's a writer and artist living in North London, is all he's told me to say. So here he is, Tony McIntyre.
I've had many love poems tonight, so you're going to get one now. A little bit melancholy. Called Barn Owl. Watching the stars, knowing some but not the rest, not most. Ignorance in starlit darkness. We sat not touching as our love we knew was on the wing. The moon elsewhere, only stars that did not give a damn. As we watched in silence, wisdom hushed across the sky, turned softly towards us, aiming to grip the rail with raptor feet. But on the verge, looking into our eyes, spread its snow-white wings and vanished, leaving us there, amazed, delighted, but bereft, that wisdom saw us, panicked, and departed. Slight facetious correction to love poetry. This is quite brief. It's called It Would Take an Einstein. Let E be eternity, the letter M be marriage. Let C be squared connubial bliss, and then equate the three. To date so far, it's only a theory, without any practical use. Experiments so far have only led to animal rights abuse. And I think this is probably the final one. I have a friend who doesn't like November. She gets depressed and hates November, so I wrote this for her to cheer her up, but I thought that November deserves a break.
I agree with her.
Yes, well, this poem's for you too then.
Thank you.
November is the saddest month, and who could blame it? Last choice player on the team, largely in the dark. 11th man. You think it could be worse. Think of poor December. But poor December knows he's spare, consoles himself, is more than happy with festivity, food and drink. 12th man, 12 days of Christmas. Rotund and lax, couldn't play if called on, and doesn't have a mind to either. November's jollies, a festival of cuckolds, one of turnips, the Day of the Dead, and a bit of Catholic persecution. Oh, but there was a time, the salad days, when Nove was number 9, the sun shone. Late summer days of happy idle play. Before those bumptious Roman imports stole the sunny spots of 7 and 8 and bumped November down the line to the sodden edge of darkness, bleak and cold and old and wet. Don't blame November. November needs your love. Thank you.
All right, next we're going to have one of our Highgate Poets, well-established poets, and the one who wrote the poem about the guy who named the clouds that we named our anthology after. So, oh, by the way, did I say that anyone who wants to buy any of these, they're all £5. Anyway, so Vicky has had poems published in various anthologies. She's been commended in various competitions, and she's published her pamphlet called A Handful of Clouds Darkening in 2016. And I always love her beautifully down-to-earth poetry. Thank you. And we give her a big
Well, I'm not going to read The Man Who Named the Clouds. I'm going to read, firstly, 3 new poems, because I get bored with my poems, and then one from my pamphlet. So my first poem is about my Romanian neighbours. This is Santos and Monica. Santos the builder drinks for Romania, curses and rages, smashes glass in his back garden, but always leaves at daybreak with his small team of men. And Monica, his partner, can mostly handle him, is always working, takes in washing and ironing, breeds puppies which she sells from the inside of her coat. Now, as heads turn, it stands on the corner, a customised car with a palm tree on the side. For Santos and Monica know what they want. My Haringey is their Hollywood. And now a poem about my mother, who plays a big part in my life at the moment, and it's called Sweet Corn. Mum has the kids' meal, grilled corn cobettes, chicken breast and savoury rice. She does not recognise it's the same corn we ate as children, the same corn we'd have instead of peas. Popcorn comes from this, Mum. Oh, it's sweet, she says, so juicy and refreshing, chewing with old teeth and clearly relishing it. This is how it is these days. And a poem about something that blights probably most of our lives in London, a source of alienation and loneliness and unneighbourliness, and it's called Buy to Let. There is rumbling at 8:30. Dan and Rachel are leaving. Although I only spoke to them twice, I suppose I did sort of like them. They did not use their phones in the garden, were quiet, polite and friendly, not like that drug-addled William, whose mother came to remove him. Dan's work in the theatre was quite insecure, though I've no idea why they are going. I recently heard them arguing, but that would be speculating. Another young couple are already viewing, and I already do sort of miss them, but I don't even know where they're heading to. In fact, I hardly knew them. One more. So this is a poem from my pamphlet, Handful of Clouds Darkening, and it's a local poem, or it's set locally, or it starts locally, and it's about as close as I come to a love poem. So it's called Bus Journey of the Heart. At the bus stand, the plastic seats are always cold. The driver climbs in, climbs out, adjusts the mirror, sits revving. Then the 153 swings into action, left past Lidl, curves across the Blackstock Road, passes cake shops, the mosque, accelerates a couple of stops past the sports centre, it's Sunday, stops outside the Coronet on the Holloway Road, where the same old motley crew push on board. Then Paradise Park and the building with the living wall, past the hanging baskets of the Hellingford Arms. The automatic voice announces Richmond Avenue. I get off. It is now 400 yards to your door. That journey I've made 764 times before.
You see what I mean about down-to-earth poetry now? So our next poet, before I introduce him, I want to say a big thank you to him, because it's Milverton, and Milverton is the one who pushed me to get this event going, and then found this venue, which he's a trustee of, the George Padmore Institute, and has chivied me along really for the last few months with the organisation. So Milverton is definitely a mover and a shaker. He calls himself a digital media analyst, evangelist, a former journalist, a newspaper editor and journalism lecturer at City University. He's a keen student of, well, there was a word that I've never heard of I'm not putting it in. Nobody else will have heard of it.
15th century books. Early printed.
I don't know. Typography, printing technology.
First of all, a belated welcome to the George Padmore Institute. See that imposing, what a striking looking fellow there. His name is John Rose, died in 2006. He was the founder of the George Padmore Institute, as well as the bookshop downstairs, which you have to come through to get up here. And he was a Canadian poet, political activist and publisher. And he was, I knew him since I was a teenager, so you know how long ago that was. So he'd been my mentor for most of my life. And I always say that, you know, it doesn't matter how loud you shout and how brilliant the articles and books you write. For example, he refused to write his autobiography. He said, it doesn't matter. What matters is what institutions they leave behind. And that's my argument with my Nigerian friends, splashing the billions all over the damn place. They leave nothing. So he founded this institute with his partner, Sarah White, and a handful of people in 1991. I became a trustee in 1996. Now, John came from Trinidad, as I said, and you always, one of the reasons why the archive upstairs, the second and first floor, is to preserve the life and the lived experiences of the African, Caribbean, and Asian people in this country over the last 60 years. So 2 floors of archival space. This space we're in now, it doubles as a meeting room and a workplace for scholars who come here to consult the library and to read and so on. So this is where you are. So say thank you to John Rose. Now, I want to read you a couple of pieces. This one, where was I? I was in Paris and somebody says, how long have you been living in England? I told long number of years. Oh, we still have a Jamaican accent, he said. I thought, oh, this is wonderful, I love it. You know.
So you do.
But this is not my town. This first poem is called This Is Not My Town. This is not my town. I wasn't born here. I'm only passing through. The little boy sits by the window framing the flat horizon of the wide Caribbean. He dreams of a big London factory manufacturing books imprinted Longman Green and Company Limited. Alas, after 50 years residence, there is no evidence at all of Mr. Green or his factory. No, this is not my town. I wasn't born here. I'm only passing through. While Yeats sailed to Byzantium, I went to school in Verulamium. That's St. Albans to you, John. In that city of printers and scribes, the good companions played on the way to London town. Perhaps I disappoint you, sir, with my unpatriotic failure to embrace your fair city. Well, this is not my town. I tell you, I wasn't born here. I'm only passing through. Now, that could be a bit of braggadocio. I just came back from Jamaica, and a couple of weeks there. I went back to my home city, Montego Bay. And, you know, maybe if I'd written the poem before I went, I wouldn't have written it quite like that. Because I couldn't find my city. I grew up in until I was 17 years old. I used to know every nook and cranny, every alleyway and byway of that city, and all the families too, because when I left there were 30,000 people in that city. Now it's an alien territory. So I call it looking for Montego Bay. All the cherished landmarks are gone. Only the library stubbornly remains. See the young boy sitting by the window, looking out to sea, wishing, daydreaming, as the ships slowly climb the horizon. The massive merchant men bowing gently, the mighty man of wars in battle grey. Fishermen straining at the oars, hustling shore with fish for the dinner table. Young children gambolling on Gitchy Beach, mothers and aunts keeping a watchful eye. To the east, the jetty of the yacht club, surrounded by treacherous waters, all gone, erased from city's memory. Further east, the General Hospital, where he was born to a teenage mother, lives now only in the cartographer's maps. To the west, a mighty highway bulldozed all before it to create a new city. Where is the gentle Montego River, sunk underground by a curving freeway? And the fine black sand beach of River Bay, where the Montego River met the sea? To the west were the verdant Bogue Islands, now covered by tarmac, concrete and steel. To the east, the old fort on the foreshore, the warm breezes ambling across the bay, the perfect lift or colorful kites. Now, I went to university in Yorkshire, in Sheffield and in Leeds. So I'm a kind of honorary Yorkshireman, a tyke, as they refer to us of that part of the world.
You don't sound like
So I knew at some point, I spent 3 years at undergraduate in Sheffield and 1 year postgrad in Leeds. I knew at some point some idiot's going to challenge me to walk the Pennine Way. And being a brash city slicker, hey, what the hell, it's no big deal. Never been walked more than 2 miles in my life, you know, up to that point. And so, you know, rocky, treacherous, you know, paths along cliff tops and freezing. Anyway, this one is called Not Quite Walking the Pennine Way. On a dare, we head from Leeds to Edale to travel the North Country's toughest trail. The city slicker declares, hubris. A piece of cake. Only 268 miles to go. The moorland stretches to the far horizon. Only the purple pink, deep-rooted heather and the ancient grey Yorkshire gritstone hedges seem at home in this wind-blasted landscape. Hand-clapped thunder rents the field asunder, where to find refuge amidst this carnage. The city boy, lost on an alien heat, battered by wind and rain, admits defeat. He zips his coat and heads for the tavern. The Pennine Way can wait for another day. It's called Voices. Dead. That's what he was when I saw him, impaled on the building wreck. Fred, said the name tag on his lanyard, hanging from his broken neck. Run, whispered a voice in my head. There's much here to fear. Now, urged the voice in my gut. Do not be the victim here. Thank you.
What a great and diverse lot of poets we've got now in Highgate Poets, and we're going to end with a Russian. And that's Valentina Kotsura. And Valentina is a teacher of French, Italian and Russian. She speaks each language fluently. So she's also very clever. And she's been Highgate Poet since 2014.
Yeah, I suppose that tonight I'm going to read some poems about my story as an emigre. So, the first one is called As I Walk to the West. As I walk to the west, each railway sleeper turns into raw meat under my bare feet. Night visions grip my heart. I think of my masked direction, inviting me to the church. Inviting like the church entrance, coaxing me to its death exit, to face a strange ritual. My deathbed, a pile of wooden sleepers. Fire catches my sari as I dance, a firebird on hot ashes, emanating my crimson light. Because I emigrated together with my daughter when she was 2.5, I think she lived through adaptation period. So my next poem is about me considering her photo. She is now 23. I see you sieve the silky sand in the bed of cabbages. Your summer sky dress collar is broad like the palette of a Flemish master. Like me, you bleed along the bleak track of immigration hurdles, fearing you might never make it to the finishing line. I see your mother tongue freeze in the carriage, packed with locals, its rejection rules in your attempt to better blend with your new mates. I see your honey bears narrate your bedtime stories and softly rock your shoulders as I am kept at bay, studying by candlelight. When I look at your photo, my child, grown up and flown so far away, so beautiful, so bright, my heart pumps tears into my eyes. I have seen you through. Well, I explored London and I came into a fantastic Italian restaurant in Covent Garden. I was struck by the opulence of the restaurant. There was a portrait that looked like by either Leonardo da Vinci or perhaps Michelangelo. So I called the poem The Venetian Merchant. In gondola, my eye is filled with the divine, deluded wine, exotic fruits, abundance, opulence, and goods, all sorts of stolen, smuggled fun, the witches hook on shady hooks, wet masks of people's flesh and goats, the horns, the orgy, the imported porn, the vulgar spread like dodgy plush, the belly sprayed with dated clues, a face of fruit, distorted view, in mirrors fruit, the déjà vu, the carnival, the madness of the wall, a duel with the painted guests, the whole, the dim interior, the music's flow, the liquor and the hiss, in elf of stagger drunk in peace, the turban, pomegranate, even rye fixes my eye. The lowered curtains glimpses breasts, I recognize the merchant chests, like Eastern pashas boast his looks, of knowing how to sell his looks. With knowing eyes, like grapes he sells, the ancient dust on gilded trips. Yeah. Well, suppose you sort of, when you live far away from home and you miss it. And so I read quite a lot of Russian poetry and literature. And Marina Tsvetaeva is a Russian poetess, sort of made a great impact on me. So this poem is dedicated, well, it's my sort of feeling after reading her books. To Marina Tsvetaeva. You need your poetry of Russian wheat that melts on fields of pages under heat of your poetic passion, of your soul, red-rooted soil, as far as the reader's eye can meet. The torrents of your words that spring in birch tree growth, they break my stream. The way you need, the words just sing, the lullaby to weeping willows. I eat your little raisin buns and bowls, the loaves of rye bread out of stove, so scorching hot, so fresh, so true. It's not the hunger, it's the morning dew of Mother Russia. And the tunes I knew I swallow. The way you need the lines, your sorrow, sparrow swallow follows me back along the seams like wounds, to the graveyards, to the beloved tombs of parents gone, of adult children grown to them in grinding grief. Beyond my bare bones, your tunes get in, the roots you make me grow within. And I would like to finish perhaps on the more uplifting note. It's called Shaving Routine, about my partner. When I see you shave, I spy your calculated hair removal adversary with your razor-sharp counterpoints, making him regret his own move. You're parrying the party's politics with your clean-shave harassment, with your bold advocating the party. You're battling with the committee, with your electric shaving know-how, slicing down its stubborn stubble. You're blind looking into the mirror, oblivious to my scrutiny, the same way you scrutinize your opponents.
Well, thank you very much to all our wonderful poets this evening. Such a diverse and different and varied group of poets. And I loved every single one of your poets, your poems. Anyway, I won't talk anymore because we're just going to play out with Gregg doing us either one or two numbers, depending on how he feels, but please feel free to move about if you want to.
I'd just like to say thank you so much, Anna.
Bye, everyone. Bye. I hope you're getting the tube home.
I am definitely.
She walked from Brixton.
She did.
Makes me very, very proud to be a Londoner, in fact, coming to an event like this. Anna and I went to a concert last night involving a singer, songwriter who was Russian and Ingushetian. And
heard of that before.
Yes, you wouldn't get that just anywhere, would you? But maybe in some sense I'm an emigre for going to live in Reading. But fortunately, we have a good train service. I just sort of wish you all the most wonderful 40th birthday. And I know you all want to thank Anna for fabulous work. I've just seen at close hand how hard she's been working on this being a great night, so thanks to Anna. I guess this kind of my typical sound. I got a feeling called the blues since my baby said goodbye. Lord, I don't know what I'll do. All I do is sit and cry. But since that day she said goodbye, oh Lord, I thought I would die. Do you got that kind of loving? Not I long to hear when she calls me sweet daddy.
is leaving.